The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, Tech Bites is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Welcome to a special Tech Bites Spotlight, and with IFBTA partner from QSR, and I have Danny Klein with me, who is the Vice President of Editorial, although we're not going to talk about Editorial today, we're going to talk about a conference.
That's right. Yeah, no, thank you for having me, Rob. I believe we have done this both years, so always good to check in. We're only 32 days away as we sit here recording on August 1st, which is a little bit terrifying.
So it's QSR Evolution,
Correct.
And it's in Atlanta, and it's September 2nd to 4th.
That's all correct, yes.
Okay, so why don't we start at the top? Give us sort of the overview and who should be attending.
Yeah, sure. So this is the third year that we've been doing this. And for those who are a little bit familiar with it, it's actually three conferences in one. So it's the QSR Evolution Conference, which is 85% of it. And there's also the Next Gen Restaurant Summit, which is essentially just for full service operators. It's a content track that we added for them. And there's also a Pizza Power Forum section too, if you're an independent pizzeria owner. So really kind of jam pack it in there. But the best way I would say is, this conference is really open to all restaurant operators of, kind of any size, or whether they're chains. I would probably say it leans more toward the multi-unit and the aspirational type of operator than it might the kind of mom and pop independent. But at the same time, if you are a mom and pop independent, there will be things for you to do here. I just think that the vast majority of the audience is kind of on the chain side.
Well, of course, you can have a multi-unit independent.
Yeah, restaurant group.
Could still be running mom and pop. I actually had somebody on the podcast yesterday from Biscuit Belly, and they small, independent, but they are growing. So you just never know where it's going to go, right?
Yeah, and Biscuit Belly would be perfect for the Next Gen Summit.
And I suggested that she should attend.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and then of course on the other side too, you've got kind of the operator, partner, vendor, supplier world that comes as well. To be folks who sit with booths or present or however it is that they engage. But it's a mixture of really all restaurant folks in the industry. That was the vision when we started this 3 years ago, was to kind of collaborate and bring together with a very content forward sort of anchor.
So was Atlanta because you've been doing it in Atlanta, was that an intentional selection due to all the restaurant brands and all the groups that are in Atlanta?
Yeah, yes, for sure. I was sitting there trying to decide from like a keynote speaker perspective in that opening year where I might be able to go and who I might be able to get to speak. And so I picked Atlanta because it, kind of, maybe randomly, I don't really know, has turned into this QSR hub in America. You have focus brands, now Go-To Foods, Chick-fil-A, Inspire Brands, Crystal, Churches, Tropical Smoothie, Waffle House is
I don't
near
know.
there.
Many of those brands may not consider themselves QSR. They may be more fast casual. And
Yeah.
then you have the casual brands that are there too.
Zaxby's.
So,
there's just like this huge
Absolutely.
hub of QSR folks there. And so, really we're kind of aiming at a couple of them in the keynote world that opening year. And so went down there and figured it'd be easier if I said, hey, would you do this if it's in your backyard and you only got to just, pop
And
over
who's
for
going
an
to turn
hour?
you down, right?
That first year was actually really interesting because, there was a lot of me reaching out and people responding with, do you have more information? And then I'd kind of say like, no, I really don't, because I've never done this before and it hasn't existed. So I'm sorry, please just take a chance to accept that this is going to be okay. But that all changed when the Chick-fil-A CEO, Andrew Cathy, had decided to do the opening keynote, which was really surprising to me. It was sort of one of those like giant swings and hope something good happens. And a couple of weeks go by and I'm landing from this flight I was on, and I got an email saying, something like, I'm surprised, but the answer is yes. So once that moment happened, and then I could then go back and reach out and be like, well, we have a keynote. It's the CEO of Chick-fil-A. Then a lot of the other speakers started to say, okay, well, I guess this is legitimate. You got a real someone coming. If he's coming, I should probably be there too. And so then you got this kind of upswell from the Atlanta brands to begin. And that was really the base of what we built. And it still is. Inspire, has been a consistent keynote speaker all 3 years. Really appreciated their partnership. They send a lot of people. And so Atlanta has just kind of turned into where this conference is. I don't have any plans to move it. Shake Shack's even coming to Atlanta now. So it's really turning into this
Yeah, but you
place.
never know where people live, though. They could be working remotely and live in Atlanta. I know a couple of people at Shake Shack that definitely don't live in New York. So,
Yeah, that's true. But Chick-fil-A and Inspire are mostly in office companies, and so is Go-To Foods. So you have a pretty large group of just at least try to begin the process. And it's been, and also Atlanta's a very good city from the perspective of traveling. So people are able to get there really easily. We've kind of had some, and we can get into things that have changed this year, but just things that we're looking at, like, well, what is there to do in Atlanta? There's a few things. It's got
there's a
kind of
lot
a
of things to
rich
do in
history,
Atlanta.
but we
I
but
love
we have
going to
figured out
Atlanta.
ways to like make that more curated for
And
folks.
change it also every year. So
Yeah.
we have the components. So we have a 3-in-1, going on. So of the conference itself, what should we expect in the way of content, of educational sessions, of time to meet with suppliers, networking, those kinds of
Yeah,
things?
yeah. All right. Well, we'll start with the content. So this is
That must be your area, right? Because this was started with an editor focus, which I think is great because you got to be a content expert.
Yeah, it still is that way. That's been both the challenge and differentiator of this event, is that the content is, and the speaker list is curated by me myself, which is a lot of work, but I think it kind of helps, just make sure that it is the kind of content vision that we're hoping for. But what I would say this year is we've got 5 keynote speakers this year, which in terms of like sessions, and that's more than we've ever had because we added this opening reception with Andrew Cathy that in the past has just been kind of, you get there the opening night and you kind of aimlessly walk around the hallway of the lobby. And so the thought was, last year as we were doing this, I was just like, I wonder if there's a way to make this more compelling, because I've been to a million welcome receptions in my life at conferences, and they usually just don't move the needle for really anybody other than you're kind of getting settled. So we wanted to make some kind of content element for that opening night. So Andrew's coming and doing this welcome to Atlanta type of speech with Coca-Cola, where they're going to talk about calls to action in the industry and giving back and things around childhood hunger and stuff of that nature. I think is going to be a really, really just kind of game-changing moment for our
Hometown for
conference.
both of them, Coke
Yeah,
and for
right.
Chick-fil-A. So
Right, that's kind of the idea. But you'll get Coke. You'll get Coke. You might even get Chick-fil-A food. We'll see what happens. But that's going to be a really fun way to kick it off. That's new for us. And then, we have what we always have, kind of with these really large keynote, very our restaurant operator focused content. Yum Brands is doing the opening one. That's 4 executives on the marketing side. Then the CEO of Whataburger, the CFO of Inspire Brands, and then the CEO of Sweetgreen to close
that
it out.
must have worked out well for you, because last year I believe you had the 4 CEOs, or the 4 C-suite from RBI.
Right. Yeah, that was, it was challenging, but very good. Definitely to have that many people that you're
I
interviewing.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I think it was one of those things that, you know, Yum kind of saw and thought it was cool and wanted to do a version of it, and we just were able to replicate and create a kind of more. This one is different in the sense that instead of the presidents, we're really focusing it on marketing. So it's 4 marketing leaders. It's the CMO of Whataburger, it's the senior marketing director of Pizza Hut, and then the global CMO at Taco Bell, and then kind of a marketing leader on the US side of KFC. And so they're going to really talk about how to reach customers in, this kind of challenged traffic climate.
Well, that's going to cross into technology, I'm sure, because the digital side of this.
Oh yeah. Well, Yes, I've seen the kind of the outline of it and technologies in there. But what I'll say too that makes it different this year is that it's not being moderated by me. I have moderated all these keynotes in the first 2 years, which I am proud of myself for doing, but it was never really my sort of vibe. And I did it to help us get off the ground at a point where I don't really know what our other options were. So I hired an MC this year, sort of was a little bit more on the professional side of speaking and engaging with audiences. And so he's somebody that I knew in the industry from years ago who actually was Ronald McDonald at one point of his life,
Wait, who's the
the
MC?
clown. His name is Dustin Portillo. So he was a literal clown. And then he worked at McDonald's Casper organization when they were a thing.
Yeah,
And
out of Florida.
yeah, he's from Tampa.
I
Yeah.
think I may have met him because I know some of the people with Casper. So,
Yeah,
uh,
he's a really good guy, really great energy. So he's going to kind of do something that I thought we
I was tied up, right? So I couldn't do your moderating for you. I was all set, but what are we going to do?
well, I think you're going to see he does something that probably you and I wouldn't be really willing to do. He has this like 15-minute thing at the beginning where he really gets the crowd energetic, and he's got this whole shtick
You're not
and
going to give
stuff.
us a spoiler alert here, right?
No, I've seen a video
A
of him
teaser.
doing
We
it
need a
somewhere
teaser.
else. I'm not sure if like he's gonna craft it differently here, but I will say the version of it that I've seen on YouTube from him is not something I was capable of from a personality standpoint. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him do this because I'm self aware to know that I'm not the most energetic human being on earth. So I just kind of I'm like at a 4 at all times. So it'll be good for the crowd. He's also gonna really help with kind of directing traffic and telling people where to go. So I'm very excited to have him here helping out
So we
and
have the
in this
keynotes
area.
and we have the opening reception, which is going to have a change to it because you're going to have content alongside of that. And then you have sessions themselves, right? So how's that broken out?
Yeah, so we have 5 sessions that happen simultaneously between QSR and FSR. 4 of those belong to QSR this year. In the past it was 3, and one of them belongs to FSR this year. In the past it was 2. So you have 5 different things happening at once. The tracks this year are a reflection of survey feedback that I got last year. So I did an entire track dedicated to labor. So anything around hiring, culture, we have a panel with 3 lawyers who are going to tell you about post-election labor laws, which again is one of those subjects that I'm glad somebody else is doing it. But and then we'll get into like culture building. So that was a track that I got a request from last year where we had a few panels on it, but people were like, we really want more of this. So for 2 straight days, there's always going to be at least one session happening that revolves around labor. The other one is technology. That was another request, was to give that its own track versus having a few sessions. So now there's a tech track that runs through the entire conference. The third one is something that we've done for opening 2 years, which is what we call take the lead, which are fireside chats. So there's always a fireside chat going on throughout the conference. And really good brands this year. We have Subway, Chick-fil-A is doing one, outside of the CEO. They're doing one that's kind of on the community impact side. Wendy's is coming back for the 3rd year. Actually, Subway's been here all 3 years as well. We're also doing Freddy's. I think
Are
I
you
said
speaking at all? Or are you just totally not moderating and not getting up on a stage?
I'm moderating a couple of the fireside chats. Moderating the Subway fireside chat, if you really want to see me moderate, and I'm also moderating the Chick-fil-A fireside chat. I think that might be it, though. That was another thing that I did differently this year, was go and get a lot of outside moderators. Year one in particular, it was just like the 5 editorial team members on our staff doing all 5 of them for 2 straight days, and it was kind of insane. Although we like look back on it romantically and we're like, wow, it was amazing, we pulled that off. But now nobody wants to do that again. So got a lot of
So
moderators this year.
when you plan content, you have your, ear to the ground or your finger on the pulse all year long because you're writing about it, in each of the different streams, and your editors are doing that as well. So are you suggesting what the subjects would be and then finding the best speakers to fill them? Or do you go to the speakers who may be subject matter experts and ask them to do it and say, well, how would you mold this subject?
Yeah, it's both. So we do a few kind of like what I would call presentation sessions. So like Troy Hooper from Pepper Lunch, for example, is doing
Sure.
his own. He has his own session. It's just him in the room, and he's talking about AI. And that was me reaching out to him and him saying this is a topic I think we should do. But most of it is the other side, where it's me sitting down there at some point in November with an empty Google Doc and beginning to chart out what I think we should talk about based on a mixture of sort of my own insights from the industry plus the survey feedback and just how I felt the previous year went and what I might want to change. So like, for example, I thought last year franchising was too big of a category for our conference, just in the sense that I had gotten this, someone had told me like, we want more specific franchising content. And I went and I gave that to the audience in year two, but it did not resonate in terms of like, I'd go to the rooms and there was like
Right.
12 people in there. And it was actually the broader, more general topics that were getting better audiences and technology and labor. So I combined franchising with fast casual and growth and split them so that neither of them would have like a huge amount of topics that I had to create. So now we have like 3 franchising panels or something like that. But then we also do a franchising workshop. So we can kind of get into that. That was something else new that we added this year, were workshops on the day, September 2nd
So if
in
you
the
have
morning.
franchising, what are the other workshops?
So there's 2 workshops. There's a women in leadership workshop, and then there's the franchising workshop. So those were 2 new add-ons that we had not done in the past.
And you guys have been through this conference, I believe, and then you started your own, really focused on the women in leadership across the industry. You guys have taken a very early position. You know, I mean, obviously you had the Women's Food Service Forum, but you guys have really taken some action to bring the groups together as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole story, but yes, the answer is you are correct. That actually started here. It started at this conference as a cocktail hour that really was lacking for many things, as I was told on site by some women in the industry. And so those women in the industry helped me kind of start the board that ended up becoming what has now developed into a whole separate vertical of our business. It has its own editor, it has its own social media, its own e-letter, its own everything pretty much. Departments in the magazine. Of course, it has its own conference, which is really the capstone of its existence, but it is growing consistently throughout the year in a lot of different avenues, podcasts, so on and so forth, with our editor Satine really spearheading these things. So yeah, for this year, because the conference in February went so well and there was a lot of people who couldn't get into it, you know, we wanted to make sure that there was kind of a larger extension here in Atlanta alongside the things that we typically do, which are the panels. We do 2 women in leadership panels that we call State of the Union. And at the request of folks from last year, we did not make them at the same time this year. So if you want to go to both now on the FSR and QSR side, you can. Got that complaint a lot. And then we have the networking reception, which has evolved from being 155 people in a room to now being 255 people in a murder mystery haunted house. So I don't have any idea.
Built on site or it's off site?
It's on site. And when I say haunted house, I mean, I don't want to oversell it here. It's basically a room that that Satine and I went and got just like a bunch of haunted, you know, Halloween type decorations off Amazon. It's going to be silly. You know, it's not like some kind of.
Oh, I bet it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be
seen
fun.
Some pictures of some of the other events that you've done, you know, for this. And so it always seems to be, you know, a good time. And I seem to recall you telling me either last year, maybe the year before, that you might have been the only guy in the room the first time around.
Well, that's not going to be the case this year. I can tell you that. I've seen the list. a lot of guys are interested in it now.
And are you bringing your dog?
My dog is way too old and grumpy for such things. But if she were
asking.
I wish I could. I mean, she could like set up a booth for people to pet her. She would like that because she likes attention, but
Yeah, I
she would
went to a
hate
conference
traveling
this
there.
past year where they had a petting booth, and it's a great way to get people in. And they had all puppies there, and it's like, wow,
Yeah,
okay.
they had it at the NRA show this year with that dog from Bush's Beans, and I actually did get the request from somebody to do that, but turns out this hotel does not
Oh,
allow animals that are not service animals. I mean, I
well,
could
I get
probably
that.
claim Maggie as a service dog, but she would hate every other part of the experience. So I'm not
Yeah,
going
no,
to
I
do that
get
to
that.
her. She
So,
doesn't like traveling.
so we're how many weeks away are we? 28
It's
days?
32
Oh my gosh.
days. 32
32
days.
days. So September 2nd to 4th at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis, which is where you were last year in downtown Atlanta.
Yep.
And we've got three, okay, I'm going to get my math wrong here. We have three sort of conferences going on at the same time, but did I hear you say it's 5 tracks?
So it's 5 tracks between QSR and FSR, and then pizza has 2 tracks. So it's 7
Has
tracks
its own.
total, actually. I mean, no one's going to be able to take in that much content, but that's kind of the point.
Well, you'd be surprised, but then they get content all year long. So listen, so a little bit off subject, but on subject here. So we've sort of figured out your secret sauce of how you come up with the subjects and, your ear to ground. So what are the key trends that you see going on, right now that you've either infused in this or because you started working on the program last November, you wish you had infused, but who knew what it was going to be?
Yeah, that is always a bit of a challenge. But I'll say like we're in the process right now of arranging the panels ahead of time. Where we gather like the speakers to say what do you want to talk about, and so we're seeing kind of the granular version of some of these broader topics. Like we have an AI panel which we had last year, and so we kind of just wanted to re-up it as being sort of a continuation. And yeah, it's been interesting to sort of listen to that evolve because industry wide it's really gone from, I think we're finally at the point now, and I saw this in Chicago at the show a lot, is that you now can see some actual results and some data behind how it's being deployed. And if you go back, 4 or 5 years, and then you accelerate today and you say, here's what it's being used as, it probably wouldn't have excited that many people because early on it was like, oh, we're going to do these robots. You're going to make this and we're going to do this and we're going to have automated restaurants. And as it turns out, most restaurants have come to realize that the dining room side really did come back, and it kind of pulled some share off of things like curbside and ended up with an AI system that is doing things like inventory management and just sort of living in like the unsexy side of like making the lives easier of employees so they can do some of the stuff that's been going on for 100 years. And that's kind of how I felt in making this AI panel. But yeah, that's been true of a few subjects. I mean, we have another one that's on kind of loyalty metrics and just trying to understand whether or not your loyalty program is actually effective. And really, for the first time, again, similar to AI, really started to hear some brands talk about it not being effective. It was like this rush. Everyone felt like they had to have one. And then it turns out in the end, that didn't really work for everybody, at least not in the way that they thought. So,
Well, you always have those things, that sort of pop up like that, and they either make it or they don't. I always tell people, you got to, if you can predict it, you want to invest in the trends, not the fads. But unfortunately, the consumer market and other industries sort of cause us to have to react very quickly on things. So some of the subjects that you're bringing up are also near and dear to the IFBTA's heart because they're always discussion topics, right?
yeah.
So.
Well, I had a, kind of good example of this. I had a delivery panel on there, and when I was doing my outreach, I got a lot of people kind of hit me back on like, we're sort of tired of talking about this. Can we talk about catering instead? And I thought that was interesting. So there's a lot of brands now who are very interested both in catering and adding it, but then the
Catering's
actual
an extension of the business. I think they assume that they're going to have delivery, but
r-
catering is a new,
right.
revenue center, just like takeout or curbside could be a revenue center, just like delivery, so that's a new opportunity.
Well, and I think there's technology emerging in that space now that didn't exist that long ago. So they're actually able now to go in there and maybe add it. So we have a catering panel now instead of the delivery panel. I ended up making that change about a month in or so. And so I swapped that out. I had delivery panels the last 2 years, and there was no delivery panel this year. It's like a little sign of
The
kind of things
interesting
are
thing
going.
about that is that, subjects like catering, sometimes you got to cross the road and you get it. And on our board, we have the CIO of Marriott on there. And obviously, catering has been huge. And for some reason, people in technology don't think about reaching across and saying, who does catering a lot and been doing it for years? And then they can, bring that in. A lot of that technology will cross over, yet those vendors don't sell to the restaurant industry, which is rather interesting. So,
Yeah, one of the kind of interesting things too in my outreach was I had this panel. I don't really remember why, but I did something on like site selection,
yep.
and just and I was amazed how many people wanted to do this panel. So it's actually one of the more robust panels I have in terms of like the amount of speakers on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that really caught me off guard. Not that I don't think it's an important topic. I just had like some of these kind of other more buzzing topics that usually you think like everyone wants to speak about, but they all came to site selection. I was sitting there going like, I have too many people on the site selection panel. Like, I don't really understand why it's so popular. But to go to show you, maybe something that's on the mind of folks. Apparently, site selection is very important to QSR folks at the moment because they flocked to it.
There's only so many sites. So the keyword I'd be using there is convenience store. And,
yeah,
because there's a lot of sites out there and there's a lot of changeover, and that subject comes up a lot. So that's interesting. So, listen, it's great to sort of get the view here, and also on the trends that you've brought up and how the thinking process goes into bringing editorial to life through content and getting people to engage in that content as well. And so, we've got the QSR Evolution Conference coming, FSR, QSR. We've got the other conferences that are going alongside at the same time in Atlanta, the 2nd and the 4th at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. And Danny's already given us the warning that he's got some surprises up his sleeve with moderation. He will be speaking. He'll be doing the firesides. So, but he'll be sharing that stage.
Yeah, I won't be on the big stage this year. I have all 4 of those or 5 of those are going to be people who are not me. So that'll be different. I'm looking forward to that. I think that people will really appreciate Satine's moderation in particular, but also I will be able to do some things that I think last year I found to be a little challenging. And this is true of any event that's only 2 years old, where I just remember sometimes I was sitting there going, am I supposed to walk up there now? Like, like when does this end? Where's the timing? Like, we didn't really have like anyone helping on that side. So I'm really going to be able to now like,
nobody would have known that.
Yeah.
Having been there. So, you're sharing the, I don't know what they call that. You're sharing the secrets, but that happen behind the scenes, but nobody notices, which what they notice is a great conference, great content, and you do well on the stage. So,
well, I remember last year.
This is what you think.
I remember last year I was grabbing I had to get a chair because I realized I needed another chair, and so I picked up this chair and I'm like carrying it through the hallway, and trying to get it. I had like 5 minutes before the closing keynote, and I'm racing this chair, and someone stops me to try to talk to me, and I'm like, sorry, I don't know you. I got this chair. I got to go where I got to go, and get up there, put the chair in, and tell the AV guy to signal like 5 minutes and all the stuff, and then sit in the chair and tell the speaker to come on the stage, and then the guy who had stopped me in the hallway when I was carrying a chair emails me to tell me that I was rude to him. And I was just like, I was literally carrying a chair. I'm sorry. I had somewhere to go.
I thought you were going to tell me he was your closing keynote.
No, he emailed me. He's like, I came to this conference and you wouldn't give me your time. And I'm like, if you had really just asked me any other moment that I wasn't carrying this chair, I would have talked to you. I'm sorry. But again, that's something I think will be good, because it's nice that,
It'll give you
having,
more time.
well, having Dustin there to be helping me on that side, I think is going to just make it run smoother. And, it's good that we were able to kind of push our way in a sense where you didn't notice some of the chaos.
Right.
But I, of course, felt that. And at some point, it's like, it is fun to deal with all that chaos and this kind of craziness of what these opening 2 years have been like. But the
Right.
best way I could put it is, it's kind of growing up a little bit. So,
Well, you're looking forward to it, I hope. And, there isn't
yeah,
much more to do, even though you've got 32 days out. And, but
Yeah, go register, folks, if you haven't. Every single year I face this kind of situation in life where I'm sitting there going, please don't register at the last minute. And I try different
and everybody well, look, it's, right after the end of the summer, but it's a
I
great
get
way to
it.
kick off the
I
fall,
get it.
right? And plan for
I
next year.
know.
So this starts it.
Well, I tried different little things. Like, I'll kind of give this a shout out right now. We're doing something this year that we haven't done before, someone had brought this idea to me, and I was just like, hey, if you register by X date, we'll give you exclusive one-on-one time with a CEO. And so I have 4 CEOs in the industry who agreed to do this, which is really great from a collaboration, networking, really awesome of them to give me their time like that. But, it isn't that we have a registration problem. I just really would love if you registered before the final 2 weeks. so I'm doing everything in my possible ability to get that ahead, but the way I would say it is we have more people registered today than we did at the entire conference in year 1. So,
well, that's terrific. And, we're certainly very pleased at the IFPTA to be able to participate again this year, and certainly will help to get the word out on what's a great conference and a great way to kick things off. And we'll have to do this more often during the course of the year. Just sort of comparing notes on the tech, but it's great to see that it's got its own track this year, and those things are there. So,
yeah, it was not a difficult track to create topics for. I'll say that. There was
I bet not.
a lot to choose from. It's just trying to remember at this point of my life in this conference planning thing to not make the tracks too specific.
Because things change.
That's one of the keys to this whole thing. I've come to realize is you got to allow it to figure itself out versus, like, we had a topic last year, deciphering the FDD. There was like 7 people in there, and then I go into this other room though. So this year I have like the same kind of people talking about the same thing, but we just called it the Franchise Experts Forum. And we'll see what happens, but I have a feeling it's going to go better.
It will sell out. Well, listen, Danny, thank you for joining me. And, it's always great to have a conversation with Danny Klein, who is the Vice President of Editorial Content and QSR, FSR. But actually what we're learning is he's the mastermind and the brains behind the QSR Evolution Conference, which again is coming up September 2nd to 4th at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis in Atlanta. And, but thank you for joining me in the conversation, and we'll certainly get the word out. And just remember, do not wait till the last 2 weeks to register.
And if you do, it's okay. I won't hold it against you. I'd just rather you not.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Tech Bites, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.